Yeah, I'd just like to say about how important it is for you to realise that the internet and the whole World Wide Web, you know, I've been speaking about the media and the news feed agencies. They're controlled. Newspapers are basically, in the Western world, owned by three major players at the moment. You've got Murdoch, you've got Berlusconi, and then you've got another cartel. Their main company is called Clear Channel. They own thousands of radio stations. They own thousands of newspapers. And there again you have another example how the information that you're given is actually coming from very, very tiny numbers of sources. Now I'd just like to also talk about D-notices. A D-notice is a form which is faxed to any editor of any newspaper, any commissioning editor of any TV station who broadcasts something such as the talk which you're listening to now. And the D-notice is sent by fax by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office if it's a foreign newspaper, or it's sent by the Home Office if it's an issue to do with the British media. Once that D-notice is received by that editor, the existence of the D-notice is forbidden for even discussion in the public domain. And the D-notice is a standard form, and it says, on such and such a date, at such and such a time, you carried some information which is now forbidden to be repeated into the public domain. This notice is also forbidden to be discussed. And that's what you call a Home Office or a Foreign and Commonwealth Office D-notice. And they've actually issued D-notices on some of the most fascinating subjects, including things like UFO crashes. They've issued D-notices when Peter Mandelson had a loan, that's loan, of £370,000 odd from a man called Geoffrey Robinson, and in exchange for this loan, Mandelson told Geoffrey Robinson, if you want a job in the government, you can have a job. What job do you want? And Geoffrey Robinson was saying, well, you know, I'm not sure, what have you got? He said, well, how about Postmaster General? And Geoffrey Robinson wrote a biography actually explaining that Mandelson took this £370,000, went to the Nationwide Building Society in his local high street, and actually illegally gave the Nationwide misleading information on a mortgage application form, and actually got a mortgage on a property. And in the recent expenses scandal, where we saw all of these members of Parliament claiming for things like baby blankets when they don't even have any babies, claiming for, you know, the moat around their house, like Douglas Hogg, is it? He claimed nearly £26,000 for the moat to be cleaned around his house. This is what your taxes are being used for. There is so much money being sucked out of your wages that this is an ongoing thing that's just an open door to corruption. And in actual fact, the royal elite, the Romanovs, the Saxe-Altenburgs, the Saxe-Coburg-Gothers, the Battenbergs, they like hiring corrupt people to be their politicians. And the more corrupt you are, the more secrets you have in your closet, the easier it is for the royal elite to actually crowbar your decisions in Parliament, to make sure that all the decisions in Parliament go in the favour of the royal elite. I'll give you one example. Up until very recently, it was only 26 or 27 years ago, homosexuality was an imprisonable offence. And we had one homosexual prime minister after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. We had one homosexual boss of MI5 after another, after another, after another, after another, after another. And the royals choose these people, people like Sir Edward Heath. My grandmother worked for Sir Edward Heath. He had a flat in a place called Dolphin Square in Pimlico. And if you go there today, this is a place where it's a kind of centre of male prostitution. And the reason it's a centre for male prostitution is because many politicians, many undersecretaries, many of the people that work for Buckingham Palace actually have apartments in Dolphin Square. And this is the kind of person that they like. This is why you get people like Mandelson, who's resigned from the cabinet twice. I mean, he resigned before he was pushed. And that's putting it mildly. You get people like that returning back again and again and again in this cycle of politics. This is why you see the faces change from one administration to another, but the policies don't change. The reason the policies don't change is because there is this plan of culling the population through war, polluting the planet, and this has to be pushed through by these public puppets. And democracy has never existed. And one of the reasons why it's never existed is because these corrupt politicians, like Geoffrey Archer, who was the chairman of the Tories, Mandelson, who is now, I believe, Lord Mandelson. Thank you there, Eddie. All these people are used as very useful cogs in the machine to keep this velvet steamroller of this plan of global destruction, keep it going, doesn't matter what happens. And I'll give you another example. Has anybody here heard of a man called Maxwell Knight?
I've heard the name, I can't remember what he was about.
Okay, well, Maxwell Knight, when you watch the James Bond films, and James Bond has to go into this underground place and they give him an Aston Martin with machine guns and an ejector seat.
Q.
The boss, that's Q, he's the technical boss, but his boss is M. And the reason that M is called M is because that's based on the life of Maxwell Knight, who was the boss of MI5. And he was homosexual, but he was in relationships with women, but that was a kind of Valentine marriage. And he had his offices where he was running MI5, not in the main MI5 building. In actual fact, there wasn't enough space left for him. He actually moved, and he was running the whole of MI5 from Dolphin Square in Pimlico. The reason that there wasn't enough room in the old MI5 building is because there was a revolution, a people's revolution in Russia. And what happened is that this was a real revolution against the Romanov family. And the Romanov royal family is the same family as the Saxe-Coburgs, they're the same as the Windsors. And people were revolting because they didn't have enough money to buy a loaf of bread. There were queues, they were queuing up just to buy a pot of yogurt. They were, you know, being pushed around, and the people of Russia had had enough. That was the real Russian people's movement, rather like today's truth movement. What happened is that all the original leaders of that real grassroots revolution were murdered. And philosophers and aristocrats and actors were shipped in from all over the world by the Romanov royal family. And they even sealed a train that had Lenin